Sam Greenwood has been destroying, eviscerating, I don't know other words that are synonyms. Compacting like a trash compactor.
Yeah.
All of the high rollers as of late, as he crushes them over and over again, much like the Star Wars trash compactor.
Yes.
Yeah. He's very good at poker. So is Stephen Chidwick. Chidwick is also a name, but probably not his name. These guys are both really good. They're already in the money in the 100K super high roller in the PCA in the Bahamas, and there are some strange decisions in this hand we're going to show you. Greenwood makes some decisions that we honestly can't make heads or tails of. Chidwick puts himself in a very strange river spot. It's all really fun, and that's why it was suggested on Twitter by Ben Page and J-Man Rodders. If you have a suggestion, tweet at us, include a YouTube link.
By the way, we have come up with a great nickname for Stephen Chidwick that we think is going to stick and go worldwide. It's the Slim Reaper.
Yep.
So think about that.
Yeah,
next time you're eating crackers.
He's tall and he's scary.
And he kills people.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Anyway, if you want to go to a place where everything is wonderful and the Slim Reaper isn't there to take all of your money, most likely, you go to Nitrogen Sports Poker Room, which is the sponsor of this video, and they're wonderful for a lot of reasons. One, they are Bitcoin only, and they don't deal with the BS like other sites that use Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They'll make you wait, 2, 3, sometimes 4 days to get your money out, even if you use Bitcoin. Nitrogen makes you wait 90 minutes. Sounds a lot better, doesn't it?
Yep.
You got to use the link in the description, though, Jonathan. Why is that?
Well, because if you do that, you get access to special Poker Guys events, including our monthly Poker Guys tournament, which you may have heard about, you may not have, but let me tell you, at the end of every month, we guarantee 1,000 buy-ins. And by the way, when I say we, I mean Nitrogen. We don't guarantee anything.
No, they just keep doing it.
Nitrogen puts up 1,000 buy-ins guaranteed in the tournament. Usually we get about 80 people buying in, which means there's like a 900 buy-in overlay every single month. It's crazy. You got to get in there and get you some poker.
And Chidwick starts with 31 big blinds.
King 8-7. So Greenwood with a couple of backdoor draws. Chidwick still ahead with ace jack high. Chidwick continues. 60,000 into a pot of 175,000.
Small continuation bet. Some straight cards, so he is going to call.
I got a funny answer from Dom.
And that's one of those good turn cards for Sam. Now he's got the nut flush draw.
Real one?
Does Chidwick barrel? Yes.
300?
300,000. He overbets the pot.
Wow.
There's 295,000 in the middle.
And that's a big chunk of Chidwick's chips. He's got a pot-sized bet left behind, and that's before Greenwood makes the call. So, yep, calling's the right decision.
We got to talk about a couple things here. Now, let's briefly touch on Stephen Chidwick. Everything he's done so far makes sense to me. Opening pre-flop, a little bit loose under the gun, but sure, whatever, who cares? It's fine. It's Stephen Chidwick. He's very good. C-betting this flop, it's his flop. It makes sense. Betting huge on the turn also makes sense because Greenwood's going to have a lot of hands that are not kings or better that he's going to have to fold, you would think. So this is probably a profitable play for Chidwick. So let's talk about Greenwood's decisions on the flop and the turn to call, starting with the flop.
Okay, so this is already a little bit non-standard to call with ace-6. I know he's got two back doors, but he's out of position. They're not particularly deep, and he's going up against Chidwick's under-the-gun range onto a board that kind of hits Chidwick's under-the-gun range with that king so beautifully, right? And not a particularly wet board either. I'm surprised that Sam doesn't just throw his hand away right away, honestly. I guess he thinks he's calling with so many hands, even the under-the-gun open, that ace-6 suited with the two back doors is just too good to throw away. He's got to defend enough, and this is part of it.
I don't know. The under-the-gun nature of Chidwick's range makes me really question that. He's behind the majority, if not all, of Chidwick's ace-highs, and then Chidwick's other hands that he has include a lot of pocket pairs, hands that have kings, some hands that have eights, maybe even a couple hands that have sevens in them, sets, and then he has a couple hands that Greenwood's beating, like Queen Jack suited and Jack 10 suited, and maybe Queen 10 suited, but that's questionable. So current equity, not so good against that range for Greenwood. So maybe there's a larger plan here. But then we get to the turn, and he picks up one of his best cards. He decides to check. That's fine. Chidwick prices him out of the pot.
Yes.
This is an intentional price out by Chidwick, and it should work, right? Because Greenwood is not getting the right odds. It's 4-1 to hit his flush, and he's getting 2-1 on this call. Why is he calling rather than folding, which would be my first choice, or shoving, which would be my second choice?
Yeah, to be clear, for this call to be correct, one of two things has to happen for sure. One, Sam's ace has to be good some of the time.
Seems impossible.
Seems
almost.
unlikely, at least.
Yeah.
As we see in this
Possible.
case, it's not good, right?
Possible, but unlikely.
He needs for that to be good, or, and much more, really, he needs to be able to get all of Chidwick's chips every single time he makes a flush. That then makes the call okay. But how in the world would you think you could do that? Let's say Chidwick has king, queen. You call right here as Greenwood. The flush comes in.
Chidwick's not betting. And
Right.
He's not
He's going
calling
to check it right back.
And if Greenwood chips, he's not going to call with king, queen, most likely.
It's almost impossible to get paid. So I'm not sure why Sam Greenwood is doing this, at least at first blush.
Right. It feels like if we're going to put chips in the pot, a shove is a lot better. And as we can see, it's a perfect example because Chidwick has a hand that happens to be better than Greenwood's, but would absolutely fold to a shove. So adding that fold equity to our flush draw equity seems like the only way to play this hand if we're going to put more chips in the pot, right?
I mean, I completely agree, but Sam Greenwood, and let's be clear, Sam Greenwood has been tearing up the high roller circuit of late. He's the new Bonomo, baby. So
that's a bit of an extreme.
Whatever, just roll with it. So Greenwood is not an idiot. He knows what he's doing. He knows that this price is not right.
He
so
knows.
then the question becomes, why in the world is he calling out of position with this hand in this spot when it seems so clearly technically incorrect?
Well, yeah, because obviously Sam's not a guy who's going to be like, the pot's probably about this. He's going to know exactly what's going on with the pot and what it is to hit his flush. What he might be thinking is that Chidwick is truly polarized in a way, so this is why he wouldn't shove, at least. That Chidwick is truly polarized in a way where he actually has worse than ace high for his bluffs, and when he has value, he's never folding, so there's no value in a shove. Of course, that is incorrect, but maybe Chidwick convinced him of that with his pot size bet here. Maybe there's that.
I mean, I'll say this, if Chidwick is bluffing with worse than ace high, he's unlikely to bluff the river because Sam just called a pot size bet on the turn with 600K back, right? Well, Chidwick having 600K effective though, right? So he's probably not going to take another shot if he doesn't have Sam beat, which is good for Sam. Well, I mean, he could have Sam beat, but every time he doesn't, he may just be giving up, which is good for Sam. But that doesn't seem like enough in my mind to make this call for so many chips in this spot against this range and this player. To me, and we batted this around a lot on the podcast, trying to come up with possible reasons why Sam might be doing this. And this was the best one we could come up with. And I'll admit, this is thin.
It is a stretch.
But Sam is playing against a guy like Chidwick who is technically almost perfect. And all the guys who are these pros who are playing this super high roller circuit regularly, these 100Ks, are basically playing as close to perfect as humans can play right now.
Yeah.
Right? They know all the math, they know all the game theory. The edges are super, super tiny. And maybe Sam thinks that once in a while, he actually has to play outside of perfection, meaning he has to do things that are substandard, suboptimal, because they won't think it's possible for him to have a hand like he has, right? Like, Chidwick can never put Sam on a flush draw when he calls, ever in a million years.
Unless he has the king X of hearts or the 7X of hearts.
Of course,
yeah.
yes. But beyond that, but just like a naked flush draw, he can't do it.
Right.
Now, I don't think that's really a good enough reason to do it.
It's the best reason, though.
But they're on TV. This hand is going to get seen by everyone. And maybe Sam thinks by just doing this a little bit, it's going to make it much harder to play against him. Every hand in the future for all these players. And then that may be worth it to take a worse price right now to be able to make people play really incorrectly against you for the far future.
That is, as we said, a stretch. I don't think it's worth it.
I
It's
agree.
The pot's laying you 2-1. You need 4-1. It's not good enough.
I mean, we should just be shoving, right? Or
Shoving or folding? Yeah, probably folding. Mostly folding.
Mostly folding, but shoving's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a pot of 895,000. Chidwick, the effective stack, just shy of 600K behind.
I thought it would be unlikely to play for a huge pot right there. There's the queen of hearts on the river.
Greenwood rivers the nut flush and checks it.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
It's a virtual all-in. He's left himself with one chip.
All in.
And Chidwick lets it go.
Oh, he has to. He's never winning there, and he's definitely out of the tournament if he calls. And he leaves himself one chip.
How weird.
One actual chip left behind.
But he's going to be forced all in on the next hand because he's the big blind.
He's going to have a better chance of winning that next hand with one chip than he did from calling there.
Well, you don't get to see that too often. You see the little cheeky, I'm going to bet everything but one chip thing happen once in a while, but usually people don't have a good enough hand where they can shove and then the one chip thing comes into play. In this case, of course, Sam Greenwood rivered the nuts. Great call on the turn. Rivering the nuts. Very good.
Yeah.
So Chidwick betting 590 of his 595. We've seen people do this before a lot. The interesting thing is the spot he gets in right after. Of course, he chooses to fold immediately. First question, should he be bluffing on this card, though?
Actually, I think this is a pretty good card for Chidwick to bluff on.
Agreed.
And this may also play into a little bit of why Sam felt maybe he could call on the turn a little bit easier, because I think Chidwick's shutting down on almost all rivers, but the backdoor hearts that come in make more sense for Chidwick to have than Greenwood, even though Greenwood has it this time. And also Chidwick, of course, has the jack of hearts in his hand, so he blocks some hearts. I think this is actually a great time to effectively shove for Chidwick, even though it's really not going to work out this time, as we see.
Right, because you would think as Chidwick, Greenwood's never calling with a naked flush draw for that price on the turn.
Right.
So I am the only guy who can have flush draws, and by the way, I can have all of the flush draws that were in my pre-flop range, so I am flush heavy compared to Greenwood in a major way.
Yes.
So that's great. It's a good reason to shove. We love the shove. Nothing to question about Greenwood reshoving, obviously.
Yeah.
He has the nuts. What about Chidwick's snap fold? I know he has ace-jack high, but his price is insane. He is getting 418 to 1.
That's
This
pretty
is
good.
not a price that you hear about in poker. It's a myth.
So to be clear, that means he has to call and win less than 1/4% of the time for this to be an okay call.
Yeah.
However, now normally you might even say like, okay, can Sam ever be bluffing? Even once in a ever, it's worth calling. But I don't think Sam actually can ever be bluffing here, and here's why. Because Sam called a pot size bet on the turn out of position. He just always has a hand, always, that is good enough. Either the flush came in, which you don't even think he could really have. It doesn't really make sense. But you figure he's got a made hand of some sort. He can only be calling with one of those two things, though,
Yeah.
right? The flush or the made hand. He can't really have just a naked straight draw. I wouldn't think.
You wouldn't think he could have 9-10. I mean, 9-10 is really the only option. We saw him call with the flush draw, but 9-10 is way worse than a flush draw. So we imagine he wouldn't go that far with this strategy of
believe
like
it.
making bad calls.
I mean, maybe we're wrong, but it feels
the
like
the making bad call strategy.
It feels like it's almost impossible, and maybe even truly impossible, for Sam ever to show up with a worse hand than ace-jack off here. So I like Chidwick's fold, and let's be clear, now he has almost nothing. He's going to be the big blind, which means he's going to be doing the ante, and the ante's 30K. He's going to be putting in his 5K chip, and he can just get that back if he wins, I think. Or maybe he's the big blind. I'm not sure how they do it. But either way, it's a long, like a Himalayan level, like climb to get out of this. But that's better than being eliminated, I think, 100% of the time if he calls, and he clearly agrees.
Yeah, but he did make a mistake here, which Jonathan pointed out in the podcast. He didn't have to bet this much. If he's going to preserve a chip, he might as well preserve 60K, because then he has the full big blind and ante, and he has a real shot to do the whole chip in a chair thing. This is not really much of a shot to do the chip in the chair thing with the 5K chip. With 60K, which is going to get effectively the same results from all of Greenwood's range, right?
I agree.
If he leaves himself 60K versus this amount, it's so much better. I know, he still only has 2 blinds, but that is a lot better than 1/6 of 1 blind. It's a big difference. It makes a huge difference in his equity in the tournament, even though he has very little chance either way. That was a major mistake.
I really think so. 530,000 is the bet to make as a bluff here. It's going to work almost the exact same amount at the time. Clearly, in this case, he's going to be able to preserve 60K, which is awesome. I guess 65K ultimately, whatever it is. And then he's going to be able to place the ante and the big blind, have a chance to more than double up if anyone decides to come in besides the small blind. And then he can, win one more hand and then be back in the tournament a little bit, have a little bit of fold equity and climb back. I'm sure he's done it before. There's so much better chance to win this tournament by doing it that way when the fold equity is essentially the same, whether he bets 545 or 590 or whatever it is. Those are all kind of the same anyway.
Right, so that was kind of a big mistake in our mind. But in the end, we like Chidwick's line. We think he played it well.
Yeah.
We are confused by Greenwood's line, and we would love to hear what you have to say about it.
So you almost never see someone actually fold with 1/6 of an ante left. It's a really unusual spot. Of course, we kick that around as we kicked around lots of things. What do you guys think about all these different decisions? Do you have better reasons than we came up with why Sam Greenwood called the turn? Because we'd love to hear those.
I would love an explanation.
I want to know what you guys are thinking. Or do you agree with us or disagree with us that this is even a call? I guess you could make a distribution argument in terms of equity as another reason why maybe a call is okay on the turn. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But I'd be
He has so
interested.
many kings. He has all the kings in the deck.
I know. But I'd be interested to hear if people can make that argument and if they want to. Also, do you like Chidwick's line of just going bet, 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 bet? Do you think that's good? We liked it, but do you like it? Let us know what you think about all these things in the comments. We're looking forward to seeing what you have to say.
If you want to hear where Jonathan came up with the Slim Reaper and all sorts of other gems, because we have a lot of fun on the podcast, you got to check out the podcast, which is the breakdown presented by the Poker Guys. It's, the best podcast on the internet, I think. Top 5.
Top 5 for sure.
Top 5 for sure. Definitely the best one that's currently being made. There's some from like the 70s that are really good.
Yeah.
You
the
can't
old
beat
school.
those.
Bob Ross.
Yeah, Bob Ross podcast. You love to hear him paint the trees, the happy little trees. Anyway, you got to check it out. Breakdown presented by the Poker Guys. Subscribe.
Absolutely. Now, if you want to see other videos of us breaking down Sam Greenwood hands in action, we got them for you. Here's a great Sam Greenwood hand where he is up against one of the best players in the world, Christoph Vogelsang. Check it out right here.
Also, if you like this video, there was a big pause there. Make sure you subscribe.